Not only are we center-based with children learning to listen and talk, but now we're out in the community serving families. We provide a newborn hearing screening, and the child passes, and off they go. But we were there to support them at a vital point in that infant's life, maybe just a few days old. We know, especially through that service that we provide, this year alone, we've diagnosed 6 infants with hearing loss who may not otherwise have had that screening. And now that child, should the family choose to walk this path, has the opportunity to get hearing aids, be enrolled in a program. This is what we want to be part of.
Hi, I'm Jeff Holden. Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. Our purpose and passion is to highlight a nonprofit organization in each weekly episode, giving that organization an opportunity to tell their story in their words to better inform and educate the respective communities they serve, as well as provide one more tool for them to share their message to constituents and donors. Our goal is to help build stronger communities through shared voices and to both encourage and support the growth of local nonprofit organizations through podcasting. Thanks to our founding partners for their foresight in helping us transform the way conversations start. CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations. Runyon Saltzman Incorporated, RSE, marketing, advertising, and public relations creating integrated communications committed to improving lives. And Western Health Advantage, a full-service healthcare plan for individuals, employer groups, and families. Have you ever been at a concert and had to have somebody screaming in your ear to try to hear what it was they were trying to tell you? I mean, that's tough. Or you can probably relate to a Zoom call where you see the person on the other end and their mouth is moving, but they forgot to mute themselves. No audio. I know what you're thinking. Sometimes that's preferred for that person. But take that same situation and put it into the perspective of a small child born with hearing loss. They've never known or heard the words to even begin to understand lip movement and facial expression, and in some cases, the parents may not even be aware of the issue for months from birth. This episode, we're going to get an in-depth understanding of how these children can be taught to successfully assimilate into their grade-level classes, get an introduction to some of the technology that is advancing the opportunities for education for those with hearing loss, and learn from a mother of twin daughters born with complete hearing loss how she turned her initial disappointment, frustration, and fears into understanding, compassion, and support. Licia Green was introduced to the Children's Choice for Hearing and Talking, or CCHAT Center, in 2004. Having seen her girls through the CCHAT program, watched them thrive through grammar school, high school, and now into college, she has turned her energy and passion for children with hearing loss to raising funds for the center as their development director. Not only does she consider the work a privilege, but she is wholeheartedly committed to educating the community about the outcomes that are possible for children with hearing loss and raising the funds necessary to not only sustain, but grow the program and its awareness. Licia Green, welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network.
Thank you for having me.
Well, yeah, I'm really excited to speak with you as the topic we're talking about today is one of significance. It's a condition, unlike so many others that we don't see. And we can make assumptions, but without that visual cue, we really don't know about this particular disorder. And as we're going to learn, children with hearing loss are more prolific, I think, than most people know. 3 out of 1,000?
Correct.
It's a bigger number than I ever would have thought. Tell us about the concept of children with hearing loss as it relates to CCHAT, if you would.
So CCHAT, Children's Choice for Hearing and Talking,
Thank you.
is a listening and spoken language program for children with hearing loss. They're all accessing sound with hearing aids, cochlear implants, and our goal is to help them achieve age-appropriate listening and spoken language skills as quickly as possible, and then get them back into their neighborhood schools.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that technology in the conversation a bit later, but if you would tell us your situation, your particular story, because yours is very unique in that not only are you the development director for the organization. You're a parent of deaf children, and you have been involved with the organization for quite some time, 20 plus years.
Correct.
So you know it very, very well. Walk us through your story.
So on December 8th, 2013, my identical twin girls were born. And then on December 9th, our life was changed forever when we learned that they did not pass the newborn hearing screening. And it would be, at that point, they said there could be a number of reasons why they didn't pass. Fluid in the ears, any number of things. But within the month of their birth, it was confirmed that they were both profoundly deaf. And this was something that we had never considered for our children, our life. What I've come to learn is that over 90% of deaf children are born to hearing parents. And we were those parents, no other hearing loss in our family. So
90%?
Yes.
And nothing in genealogy
No.
to indicate?
And in fact, for our children, we don't have a confirmed etiology behind their hearing loss. But nonetheless, they were fitted with hearing aids by 2 months of age. And then it was just through really sheer luck that one of our dear friends knew about the CCHAT Center, because we literally lived 7 miles from the organization and never knew that they existed. But as is often the case with the amazing number of nonprofits that serve our community, you don't know about them until you need them.
Which I was just going to say,
Yes.
it's a need-based awareness.
Right. So as the girls were turning 4 months old, we toured and quickly enrolled them into the CCHAT Center.
So it was an introduction from a friend by happenstance who just said this organization exists. What brought you to the realization that you were going to enroll your children there?
Well, as I mentioned, we didn't have any personal experience with children with hearing loss, adults with hearing loss. It really wasn't until she mentioned that our children could learn to listen and talk that we even considered this a possibility. And I will tell you, I was a huge skeptic. I was a school teacher for a number of years prior to the girls being born. And even in my education background, I hadn't had a children with hearing loss in my classroom. But I wanted to do my due diligence, if you will. I wanted to see and check out, research the different resources and communication options that were available to my children. So on the day that we visited, from the moment we stepped in the door, there was just this feeling of happiness, of joy, of hope. Children just like mine.
Being children.
Yes, yes. And that really is one of the beauties of the program, is how the child is honored first along this really vital path to listening and spoken language. But to your point, children first. And literally, my mother had accompanied me that day. We stood in the parking lot and cried because there was so much relief in knowing that our children had the opportunity to learn to develop spoken language and really be integrated into our family, our personal community.
And grow as a typically developing child would be expected to grow. Now, you just had a little bit of a milestone, I know, because we had to reschedule that from my visit at the CCHAT Center. You just got back from Europe with one of your daughters.
I did.
And as twins, one of your daughters, the other didn't go, which is even, I know, more
It was.
Of an experience.
Yes, for all of us, actually. The girls just finished their second year at University of Nevada, Reno. Colby decided actually in the fall that she wanted to do a study abroad experience. And I said, go ahead, take it and run with it. And she did everything needed besides the funding part. The parents came in there. But she left in January and spent 5 months in a small town called Viterbo. And, for many years now, the girls' hearing loss has not been of concern to me because they had such an amazing start at CCHAT. They came out with outstanding oral communication skills, self-advocacy skills. I was quite confident that she was going to be able to handle herself even in a foreign country. But to top it off, she chose to take Italian.
I was just going to say, in a foreign language.
Yes. So
Which is even somewhat mind-boggling to think, here's a child, a student now, young adult with hearing loss in a foreign country, learning a foreign language and able to communicate.
Yes.
And not only survive, but thrive.
Right. And along the way, they received cochlear implants at a very young age. Their first one at 1, their second at 3 and a half.
And would you explain that for the audience? Not everybody knows what that is.
So most are familiar with hearing aids. They're going to be a technology that basically makes sounds louder. But for my children being profoundly deaf, they were not acknowledging sound until it was at 110 decibels, which is like a jet engine going off by your ear. So hearing aids were not giving them enough gain to acquire spoken language. So they qualified for cochlear implants. And now all these years ago, almost 20, they didn't do bilateral implantation.
Which
so
is?
Both ears, if you qualify, both ears at the same time. So the girls received their first one at 1 and then their second at 3 and a half. And then through the experts, which I know we'll talk about a little bit more later, but the experts of the CCHAT Center, it's so important that these devices are supported with the services that help them be successful. Because you and I both wear glasses and we go and get our prescription and you put them on and it's like, oh, I can see.
Right.
That is not how it happens with technology that helps with hearing. It's really a process, especially with cochlear implants, to train the brain on what hearing, yes.
Right, or what it's sensing, what that activity is in the
so it was
neural
really,
pathways.
When Colby, as the months went by and she was just thriving, I was again like immersed in gratitude for what the CCHAT Center had given her as a foundation. It's really allowed her to pursue whatever it is she's wanted to do. Yeah.
Well, and I like that story of hope up front because it demonstrates that your child who may have hearing loss is not at as great a disadvantage as so many people think at first. I mean, it's traumatic. It's not what you expected. What's the age range of the children you support at the CCHAT Center?
So at the center, which is in Rancho Cordova, we're serving kids birth through 3rd grade. But we have a few other programs. We have a mainstream support program where we have teachers of the deaf going out into surrounding school districts. And they're supporting this year over 300 children with hearing loss and can do so through age 21.
Oh, wow.
And then we also, a few years, launched a newborn hearing diagnostic program. So last year we provided 100 appointments to families with infants who needed the initial screening or perhaps a diagnostic evaluation to see if there was actually hearing loss present.
What's the capacity? How many students/children can you accommodate?
We have yet to reach capacity.
It's great to hear.
Well, it is.
And that's not necessarily in facility, but that's in totality?
Well, I feel like it's most important for us, at least with this point, to address the center because there is an ideal window for spoken language acquisition. And if we had a wait list, we would be losing valuable time that a child with hearing loss could be working towards age-appropriate skills. So actually, we have an amazing executive director and staff who make it work so that regardless of when the families and the children arrive, they are able to enroll and start making progress.
So in this case, this situation, always best sooner than later.
Always. That's why we call it early intervention, right? We have newborn hearing screening in place. So prior to the child leaving the hospital, in most cases, they are receiving a hearing screening. Then, should they need it, a follow-up diagnostic evaluation, then immediately getting some kind of amplification. It's typically hearing aids. And then enrolling in some sort of early intervention program for families who want to follow a listening and spoken language path. Then CCHAT is the model program for that.
Are there any other organizations like this in the greater Sacramento region?
Not in our region. We have a sister school in Redwood City.
Okay.
But you bring up a great point that we have a very broad service area. We are a day school. We are not residential. So folks need to be able to drive in on a daily basis to benefit from service. But it's amazing what families will do to access the resources that are really going to be life-changing for their children. We have families over the past 26 years who've come from Modesto, Napa, Yuba City, even those who have moved from, we had a family move from Singapore because the father could transfer with his work, and twins again.
Wow.
They did not have services there, so they came here, benefited from service, and actually have moved back. So we have actually an international
I was going to say, you're global.
impact, right? But we have kids coming from Benicia, Vacaville, Fairfield on a bus every day. I mean, this is a transformative program. And when we can get them very early, there's this opportunity really for them to return back early, start kindergarten with their hearing peers, and move on with their educational aspirations.
So there's two questions that I've been holding that I want to interject.
Okay.
How old is the school? How old is the CCHAT Center?
We opened in 1996.
Okay. That's almost 30 years now?
Yeah.
Amazing.
It is.
Just amazing. And then the second part of that is for somebody who's listening or somebody who's maybe not aware, obviously there's some denial. Get over it and get your child into the organization sooner than later. Because as is the case with so many issues with either our personal selves or our children, you don't want to really admit it. You don't really want to say. But in this case, it's so critical. Sooner, better than later.
It is. And it really, having walked this path, it requires that the parents really be advocates for their children at a time that they may not have realized that they need to do so. And when, like for me, I don't have other children, but perhaps families who have older children and they see that this child isn't talking or, isn't, doing something that perhaps an older sibling did, it's time to go to the pediatrician, request a hearing test. We still have children and families who aren't finding us until they're 2, 3, 4 years old. And of course, as you would imagine, they are coming with delay in their listening and spoken language skills. But we know when the system works as we hope it would, there's early diagnosis, early amplification, and then immediate enrollment in an intervention program.
And proper support.
Yes.
We'll be back to learn more about the CCHAT Center with Licia Green right after these messages from those who we so appreciate for making this program possible. I was in the media business for over 35 years and had the great privilege of working with Runyon Saltzman, RSE, Marketing, Advertising, and Public Relations. We collaborated on many different campaigns, but their commitment to the nonprofit sector hasn't changed since their founder, Gene Runyon, started the agency. Over many years and many campaigns, Runyon Saltzman has been committed to improving lives by tackling California's most challenging issues. Guided by research-informed strategies and insightful, creative solutions, RSE develops innovative communications campaigns that raise awareness, educate, and reduce stigma in diverse communities throughout our state and beyond. To learn more about RSE, visit rs-e.com.
Hello, this is Scott Thomas with Cap Trust in our Sacramento office. I specialize in working with local nonprofits and associations. Annually, we survey private and public nonprofit organizations across the country to better understand challenges they see in today's environment. In our more recent survey, we heard concerns about proper board governance, mission-aligned investment, and how to implement alternative investments. If you would like a copy of the survey or to discuss your organization, look me up, Scott Thomas at captrust.com.
I'm thrilled to have Western Health Advantage partnering with us as they do so much to support so many nonprofit agencies in our community. As a truly local health plan, you'll find individual and family options, employer options, plans for CalPERS and Medicare Advantage. From medical services to pharmacy, health and wellness support, as well as behavioral health care, Western Health Advantage has a plan that fits what you need. As an employer, for profit or nonprofit business, individual or family, you can find more at westernhealth.com. A perfect segue to the next question I've got is the programs you've got on the website. It's a huge volume of content and opportunity for both child/student as well as parents and families. Could you walk us through some of those programs that you've got, maybe the most popular or those
Sure.
that get most use?
I think it's important to share that as soon as an infant has a confirmed hearing loss diagnosis, they can enroll in the CCHAT Center into our Baby and Me program. It's a parent participation class where not only is this very small child who wouldn't typically be in a structured environment is encouraged to attend and have sound awareness, but it is an opportunity for us to take in these families and say, we understand this path that you are on. We are here to support you. We have people on staff, like myself, who have been down this path before. And we're here to help your child succeed. As they get older, we have, a full array of academic classes through third grade that includes daily individualized speech therapy, which is a hallmark of our program. In no other situation would you find a child being pulled for 30 minutes each day to work on their individual goals and objectives. They have daily music experiences. We also offer, which is coming up soon, a 3-week summer school program so that children are not having regression over the summer.
Or withdrawal.
Yes.
From their friends and the school and the fun and everything else.
And it is fun because we like to frame it as camp.
Yeah.
And it's a shortened day and there are exciting things, but there are not a lot of fancy bells and whistles with what we do. Really, it's our amazing staff of speech therapists, teachers of the deaf, audiologists who immerse our children in a language-rich environment and guide each exchange or each type of interaction or project that they're doing. There is going to be a language goal, a language component. And we draw the families into this because they must be partners.
Right.
We only have the children so many hours a day. And it's important that they're driving them or, making sure they get to school every day.
Yeah.
They're wearing their devices all waking hours. Jeff, I'll tell you, I got so tired of narrating our life to the girls when they were young. But
you must.
Yeah.
Come on, you guys.
Right.
You have to. I got a treat in the car.
But it's also things that we do naturally. Reading with your children. Get outside. Go to the park. What do you see? How can you engage your child linguistically? And I really found for me, it made me very present in my parenting.
Oh, I'm
because
sure.
I was not guaranteed anything.
Right.
So every sound, every word was cause for celebration. And, on a funny side note, there came a time where we started to play the quiet game in the car because the girls were talking so much. But, that's much farther down the road.
Yeah.
But that is the type of story I can share with new families saying, I know what you're going through.
A typical child.
Yes.
These children are the same as anybody else. They just have a deficit in hearing.
Correct.
You mentioned the programs, and one of them was music. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to insert at this point something from Meredith that's actually on the website.
Yeah.
So we'll play that now.
Music is a huge part of what we do here. It's not just for the little kids, although that seems like, an obvious age group to use it with, but even my older kids are very inspired by music. Music is a great place for them to learn things that are actually precursors to literacy, so rhythm and timing, things like that. And also just vocabulary, right? So we could be singing head, shoulders, knees, and toes if you're really little, or we could be singing root, stem, leaves, and flower if you're really old and you're working on those vocabulary words. So music has been a really great way to sort of make it fun for them. The beginning of the day here at the CCHAT Center, it probably looks like the beginning of any other school day. Kids are putting away their backpacks, they're hanging up their jackets, they take out their folders, they put away homework. But the slight difference at the beginning of the day is that a lot of our students are using what's called hearing assistive technology, which is equipment that allows them more access to sound in the classroom. So in addition to all those things, they're putting receivers on each hearing aid or each cochlear implant. They're getting a transmitter out for the teacher, they're getting connected, and they're handing that off to whoever's going to be teaching that day. Throughout the day, they're still doing math, reading, writing, spelling, all those things. There's a lot more language component maybe than the average classroom, so we're expecting them to talk a lot more. It's a smaller class size here. And we're also taking activities where, for example, snack time, where we're not just giving away something, but we're sort of using it as a way to elicit language from them. So waiting to give them a snack until they say something like, can I have, or I want. And then through the end of the day, they're packing up their folders, they're packing up their backpacks, all those things that you would usually do. But again, now it's time for them to take that technology off and leave it in the classroom.
I love how we just learned the significance of music and the transition to education for these children. Licia, there's so much more going on in this environment. What are some of the technological advances that we've seen?
Oh, we're so fortunate. Hearing aids have gone from analog to digital. Cochlear implants, just in the time that my children have benefited from them, have upgraded 3-4 generations. They now have Bluetooth capabilities. They can be worn in the water.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
You can actually swim with your cochlear implant on.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. For children or adults who have a conductive hearing loss, it's called a BAHA. It's a bone-anchored hearing aid.
Okay.
There you go. And even the hearing assistive technology that students at CCHAT are introduced to and then supported so that they understand how it works. They used to be called FM systems. Mm-hmm. It's now a HAT system. But basically the teacher wears a microphone. The child has a receiver on their hearing aid or cochlear implant, BAHA. And the teacher's voice goes directly into the device, which at CCHAT isn't as important because we really work on having an acoustically ideal environment for the child. But with the ultimate goal of them going back to their neighborhood school,
right.
You've got large classes, linoleum floors, high ceilings, an HVAC system that should have been replaced years ago. That's where it's really important, and it helps to support reducing auditory fatigue for the child.
The tour you gave me, I recall going to a technology center, so to speak, on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to see the variety of different devices, the technology that's coming out, the software that's being used in these hearing support devices was really amazing in terms of where it's going.
Yes.
And from a standpoint of a naive observer, somebody who's not immersed in that experience, or a parent, I would imagine for the parents, what a huge benefit to be able to learn that part of it as well, so that if your child might be experiencing something, it may be the device issue. You know, you can then get engaged and either talk to somebody at the CCHAT Center and or know what to do when that happens. Big deal.
Yes, we have 2 audiologists on staff whose primary goals are making sure the children have optimal access to optimum sound. But also, you saw the sound booth. That can be a very intimidating environment, especially one where you're putting a child to get quality information. But when they don't have to leave CCHAT to go to their audiologist closer to home or in the Bay Area, they are comfortable with the staff.
Certainly less intimidating.
Correct. They are rested. They are well fed. They have an opportunity to practice learning how to be reliable reporters when having a hearing test. So actually, we have amazing partnerships with the many audiologists out there serving our children. And a lot of these testing opportunities happen at CCHAT, and then the information is shared out. And then it also doesn't require that the child miss school because it all happens within the walls of our building.
In the confines of their course study.
Yes.
Which is what a blessing for the families. It's not another trip they have to make or another day off of work or hours out of scheduled time.
And it does give another level of information that Katie, our audiologist, can use, our speech therapists can use to better support the child in the quest for age-appropriate listening and spoken language skills. They're experiencing every aspect of that child's hearing loss and how they interact with their devices.
You've mentioned several times school. to integrate this child into the school system as early as kindergarten, as a typically developing child would be, sometimes a little bit later, depending on, I would imagine, the processes they've been through CCHAT Center, where their acceptance level is going to be at par with students they're going to be integrated with. 26 different school districts? You're involved with 26 different school districts? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we are able to have the critical mass of children with hearing loss. So we love partnering with so many local education agencies, be they school districts, county offices of education, where even though hearing loss is the most frequently occurring birth defect, it is actually a low incidence disability within the school districts. So any school district may have a child with hearing loss who's one in preschool, one in first grade, and a seventh grader. Well, it is not cost effective for them to have the expert personnel to support children.
Every level, right.
Correct. So for them to be able to partner with us where we do have listening and spoken language experts, we then bring the child in. As a team, we create this IFSP, Individualized Family Service Plan, if it is a child birth to 3, an IEP, Individualized Education Plan beyond, that we all work as a team to then work through the goals and objectives of those contracts, if you will. So really the school district is placing the child at CCHAT with the understanding that as soon as we are able to help them achieve age-appropriate listening, language, literacy skills back to the school district, they will go. So it's really a good faith investment. And after almost 27 years, we've shown that we have amazing programs with quality outcomes. We're going to do what we say we are capable of doing. So we're constantly welcoming kids from different school districts. And for some who are new to us, it may be a time of they're not quite sure what to expect. But for those school districts that have been with us for many, many years, they now actually refer kids to us.
Perfect.
Yes.
And I know from our conversation earlier, you at the CCHAT Center, you had mentioned a lot of the school systems have now incorporated the transmission for the teacher to children with devices. So in other words, they might have an FM transmission system in the school for teachers to utilize.
Oh, some districts have sound field systems, yes. But the HAT system that I spoke of earlier will travel with the child back to the school district.
Oh, even better.
Yes, because
so
it's actually yes, it is district property.
Okay.
So we train them on how to use it.
Yes.
And then they take it with them.
That's fabulous.
And then it just elevates their experience in a typical classroom.
And it also gives the teacher, I would imagine some teachers, I've got a burden, I've got to deal with this and this and this and this. Well, they don't have, it's no different. For them, it's not a challenge. It's as is.
And I think for many teachers, they're surprised at how independent the children are and capable. And we really try through our mainstream support team to get out ahead of a child who is mainstreaming and educate the teacher who's going to welcome that child into his or her class and give them some background on hearing loss, make some suggestions on perhaps seating in the classroom, making sure teachers aren't teaching to the board. There's many different accommodations, if you will, and it's not only something that's going to benefit the child with hearing loss, but a number of them are going to help the class in general.
Right.
But we really try to support, front load, if you will, staff so that they feel a little bit more at ease in welcoming the child to their classroom.
If I'm not mistaken, your daughters chose UNR because it did have capacity to teach to children or students, I should say, with hearing loss.
Actually, they chose UNR prior to us realizing, but then so thankful that we were made aware.
So coincidence.
Yes, they have an outstanding disability resource center. And that is one thing I would encourage families to look into. They serve children with many different challenges. To really look into that resource, it has been life-changing for my children as they took that next step into higher education.
Yours is a relatively well-funded organization. You're a little over $3 million. How are you funded? How do you raise money? How do you get your resources?
How do we keep the doors open?
Yes.
So
how many staff do you have?
33.
33. Okay.
So that includes teachers of the deaf, speech therapists, audiologists, instructional aides, administrative staff. So the contracts that we have with the various local education agencies result in tuition that is based on attendance. There is a shortfall between that attendance and what it actually costs to run the program. That gap falls to development, which was me, my team.
You have a job.
Yes, I have job security,
thank you.
and I'm privileged to do it. And we close that gap with fundraisers, grants. We have an amazing group of individual donors who partner with us and see the value of what we're providing to the community and also what our students are doing after they leave CHAT.
Yeah.
It's really a goal of having them not feel limited by their hearing loss.
That's another perfect segue because it's those success stories that people want to hear. They want to know, okay, well, you work there. Your children are good because you've been involved the entire time. We're just starting out. Have you got a couple of stories you could share that exemplify the outcome of a student that's gone through the CCHAT Center?
Probably more stories
more
than we have
time to tell.
Yes,
I know.
After 27 years, we've had a couple full circle moments, which are very beautiful. We've had a student.
And I'm going to say, I got to meet one of those people. I'm going to let you tell the story.
Yes, but you did, and I'm so happy you did.
And I want to also stress, this is one of the organizations that when you walk into, it's palpable, the interest and the passion that the people have for the cause and the purpose that they're working with these children on. It was amazing. And partly, I'm sure, because you're dealing with little children. They're so cute. They're just so innocent. And it's like walking into a kindergarten. You wouldn't know the difference.
It's very typical in so many ways. But we had one of our alums from our first class has gone on to become a teacher of the deaf. And she returned to CHAT to teach for a couple of years. Her family moved up to the Pacific Northwest, so she has moved there and is now in a doctoral program to continue her education.
Good for her.
But you did have...
Dominique is who we're speaking
No,
of.
that's actually Krista.
Oh,
but
another one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But you had the opportunity to meet Dominique. She's a few years younger than Krista, but as she shared with you, she had an amazing experience. And when it came time for her to consider a profession for herself, she chose, her ultimate goal is teacher of the deaf. But in the short term, she's looking to become a speech language pathology assistant. And along the way, she is employed as an instructional aide at the CCHAT Center. As you can imagine, she's an amazing example of what's possible for children with hearing loss. But she also acts beautifully as a deaf mentor because so many of the children at the CCHAT Center don't have people in their family that have any type of hearing technology on their ears.
Right.
So they don't know what this looks like in an older person,
young adult.
But it's also a great opportunity for her to answer questions of parents and give her personal testimony, if you will, on how she navigates in a hearing world.
Yes.
Successfully.
And two things. You mentioned as she mentors, so to speak, parents and works with the children, we started with the discussion about this is a disability that is not necessarily recognized. It's not a visibility. You don't see it. On the flip side of that, for example, with Dominique, you would never know.
No.
You wouldn't know that she has hearing loss or is not full hearing. She speaks to you and addresses you as anybody else would. And I think that's the testament to the program for those who are considering or concerned or the fear of what this is going to look like in the future. It's going to look like it would with any other typically developing child that has gone through the program. And that's, I think, the beauty of the outcome of what you're putting back into our system.
And beyond that, I think sometimes we often fail to notice the impact on the community. These children are going back into their neighborhood schools. They're sitting beside for many of them, sitting beside their hearing peers in general education classrooms. They're not requiring additional support services.
There's no drain on the resources.
They're able to give back.
Yes.
They are not, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but limited. The hearing loss is not what's going to limit them.
Yes.
They may limit themselves,
right.
as we as human beings do.
As any person.
But ideally, it will not be their hearing loss that gets in the way of their success.
What a testament to what's happening in so many different ways, both technologically, in the resources, the education, the understanding, the acceptance in so many different ways through the school system and into the workplace and the environment, and the outcome of the lack of difference, the similarities that gives the student the confidence, as well as the parents and the family the confidence to know that everything's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is the greatest need that you experience with the organization?
Well, we are proud to provide all of our services at no cost to families. So our top priority, our biggest need, unrestricted funding. And I'm sure that's not a surprise to you as you host nonprofits on your show, right?
Surprisingly, it's not always the greatest need, and sometimes it's people. They are struggling. Some nonprofits are struggling with getting volunteers today. It's changed since the pandemic.
Right.
And it's a different sort of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think money's easier in some cases because people can give. They have some resource to give, or some families have some ability to reciprocate for the benefit that they've been receiving. But to ask them of their time, in some cases, they can't do it.
Right.
They just can't do it. So
shift.
So
but
it's,
for
it's
us,
that unrestricted.
It is definitely funding. But a close second is promoting awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I want our community to know that we are a resource. And as we've expanded the services that we provide, not only are we center-based with children learning to listen and talk, but now we're out in the community serving families who, more times than not, their child we provide a newborn hearing screening, and the child passes the test, and off they go with their life. But we were there to support them at a vital point in that infant's life, maybe just a few days old. But we know, especially through that service that we provide, this year alone, we've diagnosed 6 infants with hearing loss who may not otherwise have had that screening. And now that child, should the family choose to walk this path, has the opportunity to get hearing aids, be enrolled in a program. This is what we want to be part of. So that outreach portion, the awareness that we've been around a while. We are experts in this field, and we are ready to welcome new families, welcome children, and support them on this path.
Collaboration with other organizations. Obviously, the school system is one, but are there other nonprofits that you collaborate with as a result of the services you provide and those that they're unable to work with because it's beyond the scope of their service?
Our services are fairly unique in what we do and who we serve. New partnerships for us have been really medically centered.
Makes sense.
Yeah, Dignity Health. We are in with the California Birth Center in Rockland, providing newborn hearing screenings. And, I'm always on the lookout for a new partnership. And maybe it is through just a casual conversation that someone says, "Oh, have you ever thought of this?" And I'm like, "No, but let's try it."
Yeah.
So at this point, we don't have a lot of partnerships with other nonprofits, although I do immerse myself in opportunities like Big Day of Giving, where
and
we're
I saw
all
$52,000
yes,
this
we had
year.
an
this
amazing
is 2024
campaign.
that we're doing this.
Yes.
That's huge.
It's really an opportunity for all of us to come together and strengthen the nonprofit community as one, rather than feeling like we need to be in competition with one another.
Well, and I think you touched on something a little bit earlier where it's awareness. People aren't aware. And part of what we're trying to do is just make people more aware by having people tell their stories about their organizations. And just in the circular motion we get of people coming in and out of the studio, we've made connections because they didn't know, or it just didn't make sense at the time, or they just weren't aware. And I'm thinking already we're talking to foster child organizations that start early on.
Yes.
Who knows that one of those children might not be experiencing hearing loss or have challenges there.
Yes.
Well, I've got a place to connect them.
Yes.
Here, you need to talk to this organization. They've got some children every so often throughout the year that come through like this.
Yeah.
Just those sorts of cross communication. And it's wonderful when that opportunity happens, because that's another child that doesn't have to go through life with the challenge.
Right.
And they have the benefit of the support. In my opinion, something that is near and dear to both myself and my wife, it's education. And if a child starts out with a deficit, the likelihood is they're going to have a challenge all the way through. And it's not going to give them all the benefit of things that they could recognize or realize, economically, socially, et cetera. And what you're doing is you're giving these children with hearing loss the ability to not have to experience that. And that's a huge benefit to our community in so many different ways. I met your people. They are amazing people. What you do is amazing. The fact that you've got the experience as a mother of twins who experienced hearing loss, who are now in college, sophomores. I can't wait to talk to you in 2 years once they graduate and they're off doing their thing, whatever that thing is. And I know it was a surprise to you that they separated. One went off to study abroad and one didn't. So clearly not identical in so many ways.
Right.
And I think that's the amazing thing about the opportunities that we get through this studio to share these stories and talk about it. And I just want to say thank you for what you do in helping not only us understand some of the challenges that a child or a family with hearing loss experience, but the ability to say, here's what we do to remedy that situation. And not only do we do it, not only have been doing it for almost 30 years, it's successful and it's working. And there's great product that's coming out of this organization as a return on that investment that the community makes in what you do. So to you and your team and your effort, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you acknowledging that. Thank you.
To learn more about the CCHAT Center, you can visit their website, cchatsacramento.org, or look in the show notes for the link. Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If what you heard moved you, please reach out to that organization and do what you can to help. If you like and appreciate what we're doing to support local nonprofits, please give us a positive review, subscribe, and share. If you're a nonprofit with an interest in participating in an episode, you can reach me at jeff@hearmenowstudio.com. If you have a need for the services or products our sponsors offer, please reach out to them. CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations. Runyon Saltzman Incorporated, RSE, marketing, advertising, and public relations, creating integrated communications committed to improving lives. And Western Health Advantage, a full-service healthcare plan for individuals, employer groups, and families. The Nonprofit Podcast Network is a production of, is recorded at, and edited by Hear Me Now Studio.